Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our keynote event marking 20 years of National Brain Awareness Week. My name is Mags Rogers. I'm the CEO of the Neurological Alliance of Ireland, which is the national umbrella for 40 not-for-profit organisations providing services and supports to the over 860,000 people throughout Ireland who live with a neurological condition. This year marks 20 years of National Brain Awareness Week, and of NAI leading and coordinating the week each year to promote awareness of the brain and brain conditions, as well as the need for more investment in services, research and prevention. I'm delighted to be joined by our speakers today, Professor Orla Hardiman and John Murphy, a person who's living with essential tremor. And of course, John, I'm sure you'll recognise from his two-page spread in the Irish Independent this morning. Before I introduce our first speaker, Professor Hardiman, I want to hand over to my colleague, Sinead Bradley, who's going to give a short introduction to Brain Awareness Week. Sinead has put together a presentation featuring just some of the highlights of the last 20 years of National Brain Awareness Week. And she's reflecting on what we in NAI have been trying to achieve with the week, which we've seen grow and increase in profile year on year. So I'll hand over to yourself, Sinead.
Thanks very much, Mags. As Mags said, my name is Sinead Bradley. I am the Communications Officer with the Neurological Alliance of Ireland. And I'm delighted to be able to speak to you all this afternoon about National Brain Awareness Week on our Reflections of 20 Years of Brain Awareness Week webinar. So many of you will be aware that this year we're celebrating 20 years of Brain Awareness Week in Ireland, and since 2005 the Neurological Alliance of Ireland has been leading the way in promoting and coordinating the week. So let's just kick off by saying what exactly Brain Awareness Week is. So Brain Awareness Week is an annual awareness initiative which aims to promote a greater understanding of the brain, of brain conditions, understand the impact of living with a neurological condition, as well as the need for more investment in services, research and prevention. So every year, National Brain Awareness Week provides us at the Neurological Alliance of Ireland, along with our Neurological Alliance of Ireland member groups and our partners, with an ideal opportunity to show our support, spread awareness and highlight the need for investment in services for people with neurological conditions, their families and their carers. Many of you will be aware the preparation and coordination for the week begins months in advance with promoting and profiling across our social media pages and our website. This yearly Brain Awareness Week campaign has become known among a wide group of audiences, and our online platforms have allowed us to reach so many more people across the country and even further afield. So who are we raising awareness for throughout the week? So there are currently 860,000 plus and growing, unfortunately, people living in Ireland with a neurological condition. So that's 50,000 people are newly diagnosed each year. So that's 1 in 6 of us. So these are stark figures we look at each year. Did you also know that neurological disorders affect up to 1 billion people worldwide? So that's nearly 1 in 6 of the world's population. And did you know that it's, according to the World Health Organization, it's estimated that 1 in 6 of us will develop a neurological condition in our lifetime. So this is why Brain Awareness Week allows us to give a voice each year to the often unheard voices of people with neurological conditions. So how can you get involved and how can you show your support throughout the week and what's happening throughout the week for Brain Awareness Week? So if you follow us at the Neurological Alliance of Ireland, our member groups and our partners across all of our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or check out our dedicated Brain Awareness Week page on our website at nai.ie, and you will find out what's happening throughout the week. Follow the conversation all week at hashtag Brain Awareness Week 2025 and show your support by sharing across your own social media pages. It's never too late to get involved. Today is day 1 of Brain Awareness Week and it goes on to the 16th of March, so you can organize an event, share your story, share some information, or take this opportunity to get political and meet with your local representative and ask for their commitment to support our campaign. Don't worry, we've done the work for you and we have everything you need to get involved throughout the week, so you can download all of our materials. So on our nai.ie website, our 2025 toolkit is available. This Brain Awareness Week toolkit is packed full of promotional materials and information for you to download to use across your own social media pages and if you have a website. So you can download banners, flyers, profile pics, infographics, series of brain facts, and we've now just launched our I Support Brain Awareness Week videos. They're supported by our member organizations, MEPs, patient advocates, and they're available on our website or on our YouTube channel. So it has everything you'll need to raise awareness for the 860,000 people living in Ireland with a neurological condition, raise awareness of the brain and brain conditions. So today, this year, Brain Awareness Week is supported by over 40 patient organizations and research groups. So they are our Brain Awareness Week partners. So each year, these groups come together to show their support and to raise awareness for Brain Awareness Week and neurological conditions. But the support is much, much wider than just us and our Brain Awareness Week partners. We've already noticed this morning with kickoff for Brain Awareness Week, the activity that's happening all across social media and on websites. And so far we've seen neurology groups, hospitals, HSC, the Department of Health, the National Dementia Office, universities, schools, hospital staff, family members and carers, everybody is getting involved, and it can include you also. So some events that are taking place this year can be found again on our dedicated page on the NAI website, so our dedicated Brain Awareness Week section of the website. And for the last 20 years, there has been events like educational talks, webinars, information stands nationwide in hospitals and schools and universities, informative talks promoting and highlighting services, research projects, coffee mornings, photography exhibitions, sports events. The lists are endless. Lectures, meetings, and people just spreading awareness, sharing photos, sharing videos across social media. So anything you need from us, you just head on over to any of our social media pages or go to the dedicated link on our website, nei.ie. So the following few slides are just a snapshot of some of the events that took place over the last 20 years. So that's 20 years of Brain Awareness Week. You may recognize, if some of you may recognize yourselves in some of the photos, but it's just a little snapshot of what took place. We'd way too many pictures to put in here, but this is just a few of our images of some of the events over the last 20 years. So thanks very much, Mags. I'll just hand it back to you there now. It's just coming towards the end there now, so just a few little snapshot. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Sinead. Great to see us all looking so much younger, and some of our politicians in there looking so much younger as well. So it's lovely to see that retrospective. And as you say, this is just the start, and the event, Brain Awareness Week, lasts all the way through this week, right up until the 16th of March. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker this morning, Professor Orla Hardiman. I think it's no exaggeration to say that Professor Hardiman is the recognised voice and face of neurology in Ireland. She's an internationally renowned researcher and clinician, the first appointed professor of neurology in Ireland, and the former national clinical lead for neurology, having been instrumental as a powerful advocate for neurology and for wider health service reform for a number of years. But for us in the Neurological Alliance of Ireland, we're honoured to have her as our co-founder of the Neurological Alliance of Ireland, as our mentor and friend. And I'm delighted that she's agreed to join us today to present her own reflection on 20 years of Brain Awareness Week. So if I could hand over to you, Professor Hardiman.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slides?
Can now, thank you.
You can see those? You can see the slides, okay?
Perfect, yeah, thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much. It's always a bit scary when you have a lot of grey hair. It costs a lot to stop the hair being grey, and you start getting asked to do reflections over 20 years and realise that actually 20 years ago I was already well established and in post for quite a long time. So that makes a girl feel old. But thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be involved. So I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that neurologic conditions are common. These are the common neurologic conditions. 860,000 people. I actually think my slide says 800,000, but it's actually 860. have a neurological problem. So it's basically, we all know somebody who's got a neurologic disability, and neurologic problems are very disabling in general. Some of them are transient, some of them are episodic, some of them are progressive, but they all cause a huge amount of disability and require attention. And the percentage of spending for research into neurologic problems, it remains quite low. This is an old slide, but it's not that much different to what it was before. So you can see that about 7% of spending from the entity that funded neurologic research. This is an old slide, but it's not that different nowadays compared to, for example, cancer research, which got a fifth of funding. So brain disorders cost the state 3 times more than cancer costs, but brain research receives only half as much funding. And that's really the same now as it was before. There's been a huge change, of course, and development in cancer funding, cancer research. But the Brain Awareness Week is really important to remind people that brain health and disability associated with brain is really important and still underfunded. So I think we need to continue with these sorts of meetings so that we can enhance both neurological care and research into neurological conditions. If we look at the way we think about health, and this is a health services population health triangle. So we think that those people don't really have any medical problems, or we hope that they don't. So these are the population with risk factors, but hasn't really developed into disease. Then we have these undiagnosed, and then 80% of people will have chronic conditions requiring good primary care services. And a lot of neurological problems fall into this category. So we think about how we develop services for people with neurology. We require integration within the primary care services. So good diagnostic services from specialists, and then good integration with primary care services. And then there's a proportion of people with neuro disorders, particularly neurological disorders, that are relatively rare. And these conditions require specialist hospital-based services in tertiary centres, but still link in with the community. And over the years, we've worked, and I'll talk about this later, within the Alliance, within the Neurological Alliance, and within the HSE Clinical Leads Programme, and among my colleagues in general in neurology, to try and integrate these different types of neurologic conditions into the proper service provision with partnerships within primary care for the common conditions, and partnerships within primary care with the centre of gravity being within the tertiary centres for the rarer conditions. So what sort of conditions do we see, and what sort of conditions do people have that lead to neurological referral? And this is some work that we did over the years. If somebody has this list of conditions here, these sound sort of neurological, and these are the sorts of conditions that get referred to people like me as a neurologist and my colleagues. And these are things that we need to track. So a headache could be something serious, like a brain tumor, or another condition that requires attention. Pain and tingling could be nothing, but it could also be a form of MS. So we need to take account of that. Fits and faints and funny turns could be just could be cardiac. It could be somebody's just fainting, or they could be seizures. Dizziness could be if it's happening regularly. It could be something wrong with our inner ears, which is neurological as well as ENT. But it could also be an early representation of a stroke. Loss of balance could be something like a dizzy problem, but could also be a neurodegenerative problem. A scan abnormality. Nowadays we have scans, and the GPs can refer people for scans, and so there's a faster track now than there used to be to try and make a diagnosis, an early diagnosis of MS, because MS is now a treatable condition. Of course, sudden loss of function is a stroke. So these are things that we think about when we talk to our colleagues within primary care about how do we build a pathway for people with neurologic disability. And in my role as a HSE clinical lead, and my colleague now, Sinead Murphy, has taken over, working with the HSE to try and build pathways for these various different symptom-based presentations, then leading on to a clinical neurological diagnosis. And an ideal healthcare system should be around this. It should be providing free access based on need. We haven't quite got there yet in terms of improving our health system so that people can access GP services in a timely manner based on their need and not their ability to pay. In Ireland, we're one of the only countries in Europe, I think the only country in Europe actually, that requires a fee to access primary care, but not a fee to access secondary care. It creates a perverse incentive to use services within hospitals as opposed to using services within communities. And one of the things that we worked on over the many years is to ensure that the narrative around this idea that we have an equitable health system that allows people to access their care without having to pay based on the need that they have as opposed to the ability to pay. It should be patient-centric. That's us. We're all patients. It should be accessible. It should be non-hierarchical. It shouldn't be based on how wealthy or poor or where you live. It should be flexible. It should be responsive. It should be integrated and networked. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we were when I landed in the public health system back in 1996 when I was appointed. And at that time, I remember talking to my colleagues, and the banner at the top are actually the founder organizations that I worked with as a girl, who were the organizations that I had engaged with because I was running a lot of different specialist clinics at the time. And it became clear to me that we all had the same needs. We all needed an advocacy program that required a communication strategy that would allow us to remove our position as Cinderella within the health system. At that time, there were 11 neurologists in the country. And we weren't really making any sort of impact at all. I remember my colleague, who was the founder of the Migrant Association of Ireland, talking about this, about neurology was the Cinderella of the health system. And we really were. There was no engagement at all, and no knowledge and no interest in the in people with neurologic problems within Ireland, because there were so very few neurologists. And that led us to the development of the Neurological Alliance of Ireland between, I think, around 1999 or 2000. And that allowed us to generate priorities for care for people with neurologic problems, because neurological care involves teamwork and well-coordinated, well-organized services. And that's what the Neurological Alliance is about, was about this generation of strength by unity, recognizing that the commonalities of disability, the commonalities of the disability that was associated with a neurologic condition were greater than the differences, and that we could speak together as one voice within the alliance to bring to the attention of the funders and the system in general the needs of people with neurological disability. And so out of that we developed the standards of care, which we generated between 1999 and 2002. And I had to look at these recently, and actually they're still very relevant, because they're very patient-centric. They're looking at the types of physical and cognitive and quality of life impacting conditions that we see within the neurological domain. And this lays out the patient-centric needs that we have in developing an integrated multidisciplinary service for people with neurological disabilities. And we got some recognition actually within the American Academy of Neurology, recognized what we were doing and used us as an exemplar for developing an advocacy service for people with neurologic disabilities. We're one of the first neurological alliances across the world to have done this and developed recognition from the American Academy of Neurology. And these are some of the objectives that we have. Jumping forward now to 2015, some of the work that Neurological Alliance had been doing for the previous 10 years to think about investing in neurology, generating data showing that we had less than half the recommended number of MS nurses. We'd set up MS clinics at that point, multidisciplinary MS clinics, and we'd recognise the value of MS nurses, but implementing that into something tangible and real and sustainable going forward was one of the objectives that we had. We had 3 headache nurses, we needed 32. We didn't have enough MS nurses. And then some of the work that Mags had been doing around that time, which was part of the Brain Awareness Week in 2015, undertaking these audits of services across the country. At this point, we had 11 neurology centres. When I started out, we had 2, Dublin and Cork, two cities in which we had neurologic services, Dublin, Cork and Galway, 3. But by now we had 11, but they were all not fully funded. So only 4, there were only 4 out of 11 hospitals sorry, 411 hospitals had no services from OT and no dedicated speech and language. Sligo had no support in therapy. So you can see it all, this generating data that we that showed the need and driving the advocacy program for the 10 years between 2015 and now. So our approach to try and improve services have been in this sort of triangle. So better care for individuals, better care for the population, and lower cost through improvement. We are aware that health service is not a bottomless pit of funding. We're currently paying, I think, 10% of GDP for health. In France, it's about 15%. It's unsustainable in France. So we can't keep on asking for additional funding without recognizing that the funding has to generate cost. The cost has to improve outcome for individuals and for the population. And that improved outcome should generate a critical mass that is cost effective. So it's really important to recognize that we can't go forever looking for additional funding without demonstrating the benefits of additional funding. And the NAI has been really valuable and important, and the Brain Awareness Week, to demonstrate not only the need, but also the value for money that we've already generated. So the shared division that we have within the NAI and across the neurological landscape in general has been to undertake this, to improve the patient journey, to reduce waiting lists, to address the awful geographic disparity that we've had over the years, to resource multidisciplinary teams, to demonstrate the absence of multidisciplinary teams where they're absent, and to resource them appropriately, to recognize the value of our nursing colleagues in the development of these advanced nurse practitioners, and to really understand the role and the value of nurse-led clinics and the added value that these can provide at a very cost-effective manner. But in general and throughout, to recognize the importance of patient-centric care. We are service providers, service being the operative word. We are public servants, again, servant being the operative word. Our job is to serve the public, to generate a patient-centric care and integrate that care with our colleagues within the voluntary sector, who often know more about the conditions than we do. So to learn from people who are experiencing in the real world the impact of the neurologic disability. So to work with the voluntary sector to understand the centricity of the person experience and to work on the patient journey in a manner that's patient-centric, that's appropriate, that's timely, that's effective, and that's integrated. So how have we done over the years, and what impact have things like brain awareness have had? Well, there has been some movement. Actually, I didn't put the slide up, but in 2003, following the foundation of the Neurological Alliance, we generated some level of interest within the sector, and we had a report by Corlin and Uspedale, which was the body at the time that looked at service provision, particularly for consultants, which generated a report in 2003 demonstrating the need for tripling the number of neurologists that we had at the time. So we had 11 at the time, or I think 12 at the time, and the recommendation was that we should have about 32 or 33. Back in 2003, obviously that's much higher now. And thereafter then there was a second report, which was never published, by Marie Lafoy within the HSE, called the Lafoy Report, which again built on the needs that were generated by the Corlin Uspedale report and the advocacy that had been undertaken by the Neurological Alliance and within the brain awareness campaigns. And that culminated then in 2016 in a much more hard-hitting report, which was integrated by my colleague Tim Lynch, who was the clinical lead at the time. So this is a really good, the sort of Bible, the structure for the National Clinical Programme for Neurology, the model of care that we needed to follow over the subsequent 9 or 10 years to where we are today. And that was very useful. It's aspirational, it's broad in some aspects, but it mapped out the need in a very patient-centric manner. And after that, then we integrated the aspirations of the models of care for neurology with the standards of care that we'd written 10 years before that. And then the new development spearheaded by Roisin Shortall this non-partisan development and recognition of the need for the provision of care at a high quality as close to where the person lives as possible, and really integrating the primary care services with the secondary and tertiary care services, so that the care that we provide is along the aspirations that we have, that it's patient-centric, that it's integrated, that it's responsive, that it's flexible. So the Sláinte Care programme has a number of objectives here, and we worked in the development of neurological services in alignment with the Sláinte Care programme. So that's the aspiration of Sláinte Care. I 100% agree with these, and I think the Neurological Alliance and the Brain Awareness Programme agrees with this as well. So between 2022 and 2025, the NAI has been incredibly effective in driving forward this map that has been generated in the development of services for neurological disabilities. And you can see here, we one of the rare diseases, Huntington's disease, we have two specialist advanced nurse practitioners in post now. We have with a number of new consultant posts, I think 10 new posts now, 5 about 4 years ago, another 5 now. An increase in budget that have been announced there in 2024 for neurologic disabilities. So a seed change in the development on approach towards the implementation of enhanced care for people with neurologic disabilities. And this is another statement from Mags, again, showing the 4.6 million of investment in neurology and neurorehabilitation, because a lot of neurological disability integrates very well with the neurorehabilitation program as well. So specialist nurses, community rehabilitation, regional neurology services, and then the additional work that the NAI has been doing, as you can see, working really hard over the last few years. If you go onto the website of the NAI, you'll see the multiple documents and data audit programs and submissions that are made on a regular basis to help to integrate and develop the patient-centric care for people with neurologic disability. And this is culminating here, as I said, the additional funding that was garnered in very straitened circumstances, I must say, by the good work of the Neurological Alliance in collaboration with this sort of meeting here at the Brain Awareness Week. So allowing people to recognise the importance and the value of services for people with neurologic disabilities. So what are the really tangible improvements from all of those aspirations, all of those documents, all of that additional funding? Well, there are really, if we look at this over the last 15 or 20 years, there's been massive improvements. We're not there yet. There's a lot that we need to do. There's still a lot of geographic inequality. There's still long waiting lists. There are still problems for people who are trying to access and continue to obtain services. But I'll tell you, it's an awful lot better than it was when we set up the NAI 25 years ago, and when Brain Awareness Week started 20 years ago. So in terms of geographic inequity, there is a very substantial set of services that have been built outside of Dublin. When I started, if you drew a line in the across the country, there was nothing to the north of Athlone. So now we have a significant amount of additional service outside of Dublin. There are additional neurologists in post now in Cork and Limerick and Tralee and Galway and Sligo. In Cork twice actually, Waterford and Clonmel. So this is really trying to address the geographic inequity. And actually, I think there's a new post in coming up in Letterkenny as well. There's a recognition of the value of multidisciplinary teams. When we started out, there was this idea that neurologists were there to diagnose, as a sort of joke, that if you were a neurologist, your job was diagnose, adios. We were sort of armchair intellectuals. We didn't really we got our kicks out of making clever diagnoses, but we didn't really do very much. We just got fascinated by how fascinating the brain is. But of course, all of that has changed now, and we are members, equally members, but with equal parity of esteem with our colleagues across the board, who are members of hospital and community-based multidisciplinary services. And this is a very important part of what we do. We are not God. We don't know everything, and there's a huge amount of additional benefit that can be accrued in terms of patient-centric care by working together as a team. And that's been a very big win by the Neurological Alliance and by Brain Awareness Week in building the development of multidisciplinary teams, so that we're a member of a team, so that we have this iterative real-time communication between different professionals with different skill sets within a clinic, and a very significant degree of knowledge exchange between professionals and those people who are experiencing the condition in real time, in real life, so we'd learn from them, and between expert and non-expert professionals. So that's what a multidisciplinary team does. My colleague Miriam Galvin has been writing about this, and we work with community services. The multidisciplinary team works with the person in the centre and their caregiver in the centre, so the two teams communicate with one another, but also communicate through the needs of the person with the disability and their caregiver. So the multidisciplinary team is involved in communication, information, decision making, and the early enablers for this were the MS Society of Ireland, the Migraine Association of Ireland, Muscular Dystrophy Ireland, and Motor Neuron Disease Association, because they were the ones that were helping to spearhead the development of multidisciplinary clinics over the last 25 or 30 years. And that was all integrated with the NAI, which now has 40 members of representing the people with disability in Ireland. So what sort of multidisciplinary teams have we got now? Well, we've got integrated care plans now for many common disorders. We have a very good model of care for epilepsy, for migraine and related disorders. There's been a development of essential MS diagnostic and management service in all neurology centres, and that's part of Brain Awareness Week, one of the objectives they have over a number of years. The recognition and development of regional national specialist centres for rare conditions, for example, the MD service that we provide in Beaumont, which is a national service, MS service, which are integrated within centres around the country with lead centres in a number of regions, and then one lead centre that's integrated with, for example, stem cell therapies in Ireland. And that wouldn't have happened without what we're doing now with Brain Awareness. A Huntington's disease clinic now setting up in Galway with links to the clinic in Dublin. The movement disorder services, the deep brain stimulation that we'll hear about with Mr. Murphy, the next speaker. So linkages across the country now with the specialist service in the Mater Hospital and the deep brain stimulation services that are happening between the Mater and Beaumont. A new sleep narcolepsy clinic in St. James's Hospital. New clinics for these ataxias, these movement disorders, where people have problems in the back of the brain, the cerebellum, in Tala Hospital, an national amyloid service in Tala Hospital. And then, of course, the important thing is recognizing the value of partnerships. So neurological service in the HSE, this is something we did with under Neurological, working with our colleagues in pharmacy, but working closely with the people with the disability and with their advocates. And this one was with the Migraine Association of Ireland. So understanding the needs of people, to listen to the people with the needs and work with the voluntary organization. So we did a program through Neurological looking at self-care for headache, working with the Migraine Association of Ireland, promoting self-care, providing nurse-led clinics, providing rapid access to expert advice for GPs, and to recognising the integrated multidisciplinary needs of people with migraine by providing new psychology services. That's a very successful program, and these are some of the outcomes from that very successful program over the years. Same with motor neuron disease, again to the HSC with Neurological, recognising for a rare neurological disease and using this as an exemplar, providing national service, which is very well integrated and properly funded now through the HSE, with a proper, horribly complicated but very a pathway that works really well, and we built pathways for other conditions as well. So additional pathways that we include, that we've generated now, include headache, epilepsy, MS, Parkinson's disease, and one that's currently under development for Huntington's disease as well. And of course, those pathways are very much in conjunction with the voluntary organizations. And the value of these are enunciated through things like the Brain Awareness Week. And of course, I mentioned at the beginning that the dearth of funding that was being provided for people with neurological disabilities, and the brain is a bit of the final frontier in terms of understanding how the body works. And so there are a number of really important initiatives that happened over the last 15 or 20 years to develop research into brain disorders. So this is one that is set up between Trinity College in Dublin and UCSF. It's called GBHI, Global Brain Health Institute, and the idea behind that is to provide leadership in brain health, but mostly around dementia care. So there's a very large entity across the Trinity campuses to promote brain health through the auspices of GBHI, Global Brain Health Institute, and linked with the US. Future Neuro was set up in 2016. It's a really vibrant, effective research center integrated through the College of Surgeons, initially focusing on rare epilepsies and motor neuron disease, but now it's expanded out to many other neurologic conditions and neuropsychiatric conditions, well, with all the brain, and has received funding from the Science Foundation Ireland, now called TIDA Ireland, to the tune of 30 or 40 million over the last with industry collaboration. So a big push there in terms of the development of research, very valuable cutting edge research, and Future Neuro has a very important outreach program around communication and are very active during Brain Awareness Week as well. The manager there being Bridget Doyle, and the driving the communication around brain awareness and brain health. And the Dementia Research Network, DRNI, seeks to improve our understanding of dementia, and that's a really important group, a network of individuals and organizations working closely with the Dementia Strategy Group, which is now run by my colleague Sean O'Dowd, to try and not only improve services, but drive research and clinical trials for people with brain disorders that are associated with loss of cognitive function. And this is one that I run, Precision ALS, which again is funded by Science Foundation Ireland and TIDA Ireland. It's a linkage between a data science centre funded by Science Foundation Ireland called ADAPT and Future Neuro. And the idea here is to try and build a new pathway to understand the disease that is motor neuron disease. And it's an 11 million euro project to develop a patient data platform so we can improve our understanding of the disease and develop new clinical trials. And then speaking of the benefits of new treatments that have been developed over the years, there have been many new therapies over the last 20 years since Brain Awareness Week was set up. Multiple sclerosis is now a treatable disease. It's one of the major success stories in neurological care. When I started out with MS as a neurologist in 1996, MS, we didn't do any treatments at all. We gave people steroids when they had a relapse, and we hoped for the best. Now you just don't see disability with MS anymore. We have 15 or 20 drugs really effective for MS, and then a network of fantastic clinicians who look after our co-citizens with MS, and this is a very treatable disease now. You just don't see disability with MS anymore. There's a condition in childhood, and babies who are born with a condition called spinal muscular atrophy. This is a treatable disease now. We have a treatment now that stops the disability. These babies used to die at a year. Now they can live to adulthood. So that's an amazing new treatment of gene-based therapy. The Future Neuro has been driving advances in epilepsy management. There's a subcategorization now based in genomics. There's a condition called Dravet syndrome, for which there's a treatment now using the cannabinoids, and that's been through the advocacy of things like Brain Awareness Week to allow us to use these treatments in these subgroups of people where we can get really new effective treatments, and undertaking academic and clinical research in tandem to identify the sub causes of different subtypes of epilepsy so that we can get proper precision medicine based treatments for these conditions, and that's moving apace as well. Deep brain stimulation for movement disorders. We're going to hear about this for benign essential tremor, the next speaker. Progress in Alzheimer's disease, not as much as we'd like, but definitely there are some treatments that look like they might have a bit of a benefit, and a lot of research going on. So that's going to watch the space over the next 10 years. And much better targeted treatments for migraine now. Migraine now is a much more better managed disease. My colleague Martin Rutledge, who's spearheading migraine services, headache services across the country, and making sure that people with migraine can get the proper treatment in a timely way, but really good targeted therapies now. And gene therapies for rare neurological disease in the pipeline, and my own experience in motor neuron disease is the case as well. Lots of clinical trials underway. This is just the the two big clinical trial centres, one in St. James's Hospital, multiple trials for neurologic conditions, and similarly for the clinical trial centre in RCSI. These are the two clinical trial centres with whom I work, but there are clinical trial centres across the country as well that are engaged in developing new drugs for people with neurologic disability. These are funded by the state as well. So, and then finally, the development of nurse education programs. So MAGS is involved in ensuring funding for clinical nurse specialists in 2023. But the problem was that we had no training for these nurses. So you need to have a level 9 or a master's degree to become a clinical nurse specialist, and we didn't have a program that was available. So we've been working very hard to develop a new master's program for neurological nursing that's going to kick off in September in the College of Surgeons. So what are the next steps between 2025 and 2045? Well, we should have a really well-developed hub and spoke model for neurology aligned with the new regional health authorities. I'm really hoping that Sláintecare will be there and living and breathing so that people can get the best care, the highest quality of care in an integrated manner, as close to where they live as possible, but not compromising in any way the quality of their care. Expanded multidisciplinary teams in underserved areas. We're about halfway there at the moment. These sorts of meetings are really important to make sure that that happens. Alignment with the neurorehabilitation program. We are hand in glove with the neurorehabilitation colleagues, and so developing a combined program is really important, and this is something that Brain Awareness Week has been doing as well. Continue with the joint advocacy with the people who know about the conditions. These are people who are living their lived experience with the conditions. Really important. They teach us things that we didn't know about as clinicians. Better access for all and accessible clinical trials for new treatments. We're better at that than we used to be. We used to be able to get any trials in Ireland. Now we do. And finally, better outcomes. So thank you very much for listening to me. And I think this has been a fantastic 20 years. It's been a roller coaster of a journey. And I'm really optimistic for the next 20 years, but I'll be in a nursing home somewhere by then, I suppose. Thanks very much.
Professor Hardiman, thank you so much for that. And it's fantastic to see, as you say, how far we've come. You know, I suppose it's instructional that to see what we've done, but how far we still have to go. And I suppose, you know, just to echo your comments about the importance of Brain Awareness Week and that neurological community coming together. Just last week, we were able to leverage meetings with the new Minister for Health, the new Minister of State for Disability, on foot of Brain Awareness Week coming. You know, that was the message that we sent out. We wanted to sit down with them, and we had some very useful discussions with them just because it was coming into National Brain Awareness Week, and that's why they met with us. So thank you so much for your presentation. As I say, just a really good introspective reflection on where we've come from. Thank you so much for that. I'm just conscious of time, so I might just move on to our next speaker, John Murphy. I know we have a lot of questions in the chat. I did put out an email address there if anyone wants to submit questions to advocacy@nai.ie, and we'll try and get responses from them for both our speakers this morning. So John, I'll leave you to introduce yourself, just to say that you're someone who's living with essential tremor. And despite any reservations John might have, he's a fantastic speaker. He is a fantastic advocate for people living with essential tremor, and he's going to give his own personal experience of living with the condition and of his experience of deep brain stimulation surgery, which since 2021 has become available in Ireland. So I'll hand over to you now, John.
Hello, everybody. Mine is just a simple story. I was born, a bit about myself, a bit of background. I was born in 1952. I was born in March, the 14th of March. The quick ones amongst you will realise that it's my birthday this week. I'll be 73. I wish to God this facility had been available when I was younger, obviously because it's only new medicine or new technology. Obviously it wasn't. In 1986, when I was about 34, 35, I noticed a slight tremor in my left hand. I didn't pay any attention to it at the time, but I remember thinking to myself, that wasn't there yesterday. And it progressively got worse and worse and worse. I went to, I'll keep the story short, I went to a neurologist. He diagnosed me with essential tremor. I hadn't a clue what it was. I had to ask him all about it. I've since found out an awful lot about it. It just got worse and worse and worse. Then it migrated from my left hand into my right hand. I didn't worry too much about it because I'm right-handed, but now it was in my right hand. That got worse and worse and worse. It became intolerable. I went to a neurologist. He said there's no cure for it, no known cure for it. He said you're at the top of my list for a cure. Didn't really fancy that as a bedside manner, but I ended up eventually getting myself in front of Evan McGovern. She was the only one who gave me any hope. She said, I may know somebody who can help you. I subsequently got in front of Dr. Walsh. He told me that, yeah, I'd be on initial scan. He said you could possibly be a candidate for this treatment, but he said you've got to jump through a lot of hoops. It's not sufficient that you come in here and say to us that you want this treatment. You have to literally prove to us that you're not bonkers, I suppose. You've got neurological tests to do. You've got speech and language tests to do. You have other tests to do. I went and did those, and I came out the other side, and he said, yeah, a third of my patients go to, I think it is France or Spain to get it done. A third of my patients go to London, and a third of my patients we do here. He said, we're going to do you here in Beaumont. I said, super, great. When? We're going to do you as soon as possible. That subsequently went back and back. Apparently there was a machine that broke down at the time, and it got put off and put off again and put off again. And then he said, look, he said, let's cut through all of this. You can go to London if you want. He said, you can go to the London clinic. I said, a London clinic? I said, what hospital is it associated with? He said, John, it's the London clinic. I said, I'm missing something here, so I shut up. He said you have to pay for your fare over. You have to pay for your accommodation, but we'll look after the treatment. Over I went. The London clinic. It's some place I had never seen a place like it in my life. I happened to go there on the day that the King of England was getting diagnosed for cancer. I subsequently found myself in room 5. He was in room 9, right across the way. I remember I was down in the public toilet thinking to myself, he's going to walk in here any minute now, but he never did. I think he had a toilet in his own room. I went over on a Sunday, flew over on Sunday. I had a battery of tests on Monday, battery of tests on Tuesday, battery of tests on Wednesday. The operation was done on Thursday. I was in ICU for a day. I was moved back down to my ward. I was sent home from the hospital on Saturday. My son came over with me. I stayed an extra day, and we flew home on Monday. And I haven't looked back since. Went into Dr. Walsh about 4 to 5 weeks after that. And literally, he switched it on. When he switched it on, it just stopped. And I mean, stopped. I've had no downside to it. I've had no post-care needed. He said that we have up to about setting 15 on the system that we have. He said you're on setting 5 on your left hand, setting 2 on your right hand. We've got plenty of wriggle room if we need to readjust it at some stage in the future. I estimated there and then with Dr. Walsh that I had a 92 to 95% improvement in my right hand, and I had an 82% improvement in my left. I said, why less on my left than my right? He said, it's been in your left longer than it's been in your right. I said, fine, I'll take that. Before I had gone over the operation, Dr. Walsh said to me, and I suppose this is him managing expectations, he said, if I was to give you a 70% improvement in your condition, what would you say? I said, I'd take it. Well, I have a 92 and an 85, so I'm best pleased. I haven't looked back since then. I was done on the last day of January, 31st of January 2024, which was last year. I've had the operation about 13 or 14 months since, and it's changed my life, literally changed my life. And I would highly, the object of this exercise is to get to the people who are thinking of not doing it. I asked Dr. Walsh once, I said, of the people that identify you here in the Neurological Society of Ireland, who identify you behind this yellow door in Eccles, of the people that come through that yellow door, do all of them take this procedure? No, he said they don't. I said, what percentage don't? He said, about 25%. So I said, 25%, I think 25% of people that come through the yellow door decide not to do it. Yes. And he said, most of them are women. And I said, why most of them women? He said, I don't know. But he said 25% of people decide not to have the surgery. Now, I know there's an inherent risk in having the surgery. Obviously, there's an inherent risk with any surgery. And I asked Dr. Walsh, I said, what are the risks? He said, well, with any surgery, the risk is death. He looked me straight in the eye, death, paralysis, semi-paralysis, stroke. Good God, these are really big, big things. But my life had become, this tremor was not sustainable. I couldn't continue to go on the way I was. I had to have something done about it. I didn't know what, but I had to have something done. It affected me in every aspect of my life. Shaving, combing your hair, buttoning your shirt. You know that you need two hands to button a shirt. It cannot be done by one. Going out, having a stake out, having a sharp knife in your hand, that's a major danger that you could end up stabbing somebody, inadvertently stabbing somebody. I used to go out initially, but I'd go into a restaurant and I'd say, have you got a table over in the corner? And who I was with said, what are you doing? I said, I'd rather be not, I want a table where I'm not overlooked. I was out once and there was a couple beside me and they were quite close, and I wasn't managing the knife and fork very well. And I could see her watching my plate. And the more I realized I was being overlooked and there was nothing I could do about it, the worse it became. The more you try to stop it, the worse it is. So you solve it in your own inevitable, in your own way. You don't go out, you stay at home, you don't bother. If you do go out, you want a table that's not overlooked by anybody. Apparently there are a lot of people out there with this, I won't call it a disease, this ailment, this condition. They're just living in silence. And those are the people I'm trying to get to. They're the ones I want to try and influence. It's a dangerous procedure. Obviously, you have to make your own decision about that. But the possibilities are endless. And I'm a living example of that. I have 92% improvement in my right and an 85% improvement in my left. I'm best pleased. That's my story.
Thank you so much, John. Didn't I tell you you would be fantastic? You're a great advocate for people living with essential tremor, but also just to talk and reassure people about the procedure that you had. And I suppose
I see somebody asking a question there, what treatment did I have? I had deep brain surgery. And I thought that this surgery would be the implementation of an electrode here and an electrode there, just under the bone. Apparently, you go into the brain by about 2 inches. On the left side at a 45-degree angle, and you go into the brain by 2 inches, 2.5 inches on the right side by 45 degrees, and you go right down to the thalamus. Don't go near it, don't touch it. This was all explained to me by Dr. Walsh's surgery. And they covered it up and they wired the wire down inside behind your ear, all internally down here. And I have what is like a pacemaker just underneath my collarbone. And I have a remote control. I'm in charge of the remote control. I switch it on every night. I switch it off every night, and I switch it on every morning. Why? I said to Dr. Walsh, do I do that? Like any mechanical instrument, he said, you don't need it. during the night. And if you don't use a mechanical instrument, the longer you don't use it, the longer it'll last. I have a 25-year lifespan for this battery, which will take me up to about 95. Yeah, I think I'm ahead of the curve at the moment. I'm really pleased by Dr. Walsh. I'm really pleased by what I've experienced. I'm living my life finally at 70.
Just to say thank you, John, for just reminding me there. I do want to acknowledge NAI members, the Dublin Neurological Institute and their team, who provided specialist support to John throughout his experience. And just, I know we're a little bit stuck for time now. We're coming up on the hour. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, Professor Hardiman. I think we could easily spend a day reflecting on Brain Awareness Week and where we have come from, where we still need to go. But as I say, this morning was just a snapshot into what Brain Awareness Week is, what we've managed to do, what we still want to do, and just to say thank you to our fantastic speakers. And we look forward to sharing the rest of Brain Awareness Week with you. Please continue to follow us on social media, check out our website, nai.ie. And thank you all so much for tuning in this morning. Just if people want to contact us with any questions, advocacy@nai.ie, we'll do our best to get answers to them, because I know we were tight for time this morning. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of Brain Awareness Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.